Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and thank you for stopping by once again. I'm delayed, as usual, but I've been watching as the unfolding of this whole COVID thing continues on its way. I'd hoped it'd move a little bit faster, and I'd have some big announcements to make, but I don't yet. But we're headed in that direction. There's a way things are done in Panama, and it's following that particular pattern, and I've seen it before, and we're definitely headed in the right direction from the perspective of people who want to get past COVID. The curfews and the various restrictions of that sort are pretty much gone now, and things are relaxing a bit in restaurants. In soccer game, football games, or what have you, we have 100% of the seats are available, and I haven't seen a restaurant yet that seems to be concerned with how many percentage of their tables are filled. There may still be a rule out there, but obviously it's not a major one. But we do continue to wear masks, and we do wear kind of a shield, a face shield, only on the public transport, the metro in particular, and the buses. But otherwise, we do our masks, and that's it. And we will probably be made voluntary, and at some point here, not too distant future, we will see. And then individual businesses or offices or whatever wish to insist on a mask, then they can do so. That's their business. I don't expect most will. I think people will be letting up on it. But trust me, in this one, it's not everyone's going to rip off their mask and go dancing in the streets. There'll be a few people who do that, of course. But it's just, we're careful. And things have gone so well, and we have come from so far, and especially in these last few months, and we're very, very fortunate. We managed to get the vaccinations out and done before the Delta virus, which is here. But it got very far. It didn't get far. It ran into it. And Mu is yet another variant that comes from South America. It came in from Colombia. But again, the vaccines have been successful in holding it back. So our situation is very positive in that regard. We have plenty of that left, and we will be making a gift of, I think, 250,000 doses of AstraZeneca to other Central American countries and islands and nations that are in need, and so forth. And we now provide AstraZeneca because we have enough Pfizer to deal with everybody here. We offered that to people coming in, tourists, or anybody passing through for free. They want it, they can have it. And it was, that will help make it easier for them to enter the country and so forth. And that's, as far as I know, that's free. I'm sure it's free. We're just moving along. We bought all that. All these that we're handing away, we paid for. So we're not handing somebody else's charity away as charity. So and we don't see it as charity. We see it as a responsibility. Some of the nations just don't have the money, and some of them, Nicaragua comes to mind, have a problem with getting anything done from the government perspective. So you do your best to try to distribute them as well. We're doing it through a regional organization, health organization, so that it's done as fairly as possible. So anyhow, we're coming along fine. And who knows? We need to really push Panama. We need to get people thinking about coming down again and so forth. Well, we're at the right time to start doing that. We're not missing the fact October is usually a reasonably quiet month. It does begin to gain. This is in the past, pre-pandemic. But really gets rolling in November, December. That's when the weather gets cooler up in the north. Now, that's for people from Europe and North America, whom you represent the majority here. You're certainly not all of them, because I have a number of Latin Americans and Asians, but you are, and Africans, I might add. But yeah, it's your people, as the weather turns colder, do tend to come down more and so forth. On that one note, since I was going to leave that to the end, I'll just mention it right now. There's been some confusion in the past about how long the visa is for somebody coming down from the United States and Canada in particular. because we have what we call snowbirds, people who, if you're an American or Canadian, you know that term. It's what we call people in the northern portions of the U.S. and in Canada that come, say, to Florida or one of the southeastern states in the U.S. during the winter months to get away from the snow, the ice, and the cold weather. Well, we have snowbirds here in Panama, and they sometimes get forgotten. They come down. They actually own homes here. Not all of them. Some of them rent, of course. But most do actually, quite a number, do own them, and they come down for 4 to 6 months of the year. And they've been here for quite a while. People forget that, and now they were talking about reducing the number of days to 90, and then they'd have to leave the country and go through all the hassle of coming back in and everything else. And there was a debate as to how long they'd have to be outside the country, blah, blah, blah. And people were getting upset. And, of course, the moment I heard it, I called everybody I could get my hands on and say, for God's sakes, let's not go through this again. I had been one who had reminded them of snowbirds the last time we went through this, which is quite a long time ago, about a decade and a half, all close to it. And other people did as well. So I'm pleased to say that the government has put out a decree, and it's 180 days, period. It was never clearly stated how much time it was, that it was 180 earlier. I won't go into how the flexibility government agencies have here in determining these things, but now we have the decree. It is solid. It's 180 days for Canadians and Americans on the grounds of reciprocity. That's part of the question is why do we do it for some nations and not others? Because Canadians and Americans give Panamanians 180-day visas to their countries. So that's reciprocally, we also provide the same. And I mean, it's a good justification for it that nobody has to get tied up into knots about why this country and not that country. And I think they're going through and they're looking at all their various arrangements because we have so many treaties and agreements and what have you with various and sundry nations and groups of nations and so on, that it can get a little confusing. So I just wanted to mention that 180 days it is for the snowbirds and anybody else who's coming down from the north. Our economy continues to recover, and we're still looking good. The IMF came out with their latest predictions for the world, and they've lowered their predictions for many people, but we are still at 12%. As you will see in the report that is going to come out, we've been averaging up around 10% through the first 6 months of this year. And so the IMF is suggesting that we'll be at 12 by the end of the year. That's what they had earlier suggested. So they didn't move us. Everybody else is falling down. We stayed steady. The local Chamber of Commerce here, which has perhaps some better source of information that's more recent, is saying 13.8% for the year. Well, that's the highest yet. They were running 8 to 12% among various agencies, international groups, and what have you. Now they're running in the 10 to 14% rate, now that we're actually at 10%. So we will see when we get there what it is. A lot of the rapid growth is over now since we're now comparing to 2 quarters of the prior year that were not as bad as the first two. So we will see what we will see. You will read about where we are in the report that's coming, or the update that's coming out. Okay. Then, I frequently get this question at this time. This comes up every few years, and we're getting another stream of them. Understandably, I mean, it's in the air, so to speak. It's frequently discussed. And that's this concern about Panama being a dollar economy. Should I come if I have dollars and so forth? I've been in the business of worrying about foreign currency exchange for 54 years because it was my money. I was going in and changing it. I also was a director and manager of programs in different parts of the world, and we had to determine when to get our budgets, which was delivered to us in dollars if we were working for an American organization, and turn that into the local currency there. Because if we made if we hit it right, we could get an extra 5-10%, but if we didn't, we could lose 5-10%. And sometimes it was even more difficult than that. So I'm very much familiar with the foreign currency exchange markets, and on a day-to-day basis, so to speak, face-to-face with it. That's also, I've been one that I followed the foreign exchange markets too. I just want to say this, that I could go on for an hour, all right? I wouldn't lose too much sleep over this, over us. To begin with, we don't do what the Federal Reserve tells us to do, all right? Put that aside. Our superintendent does not have that responsibility or the power to do it. The superintendency of banks here is to see to it that they're honest and that they are reporting their statistics correctly and that the general public knows that. And they make reports on local banks and their strength and so forth. And that's a very valuable thing. And we don't. And U.S. banks don't tell us what to do. There's only one U.S. bank here. It's Citibank. It's a commercial bank. I don't know. They might have an exception for some very wealthy person, but otherwise they don't deal in checking accounts and savings accounts, what have you. They're business bank. Otherwise, I use a Canadian bank. There are other banks. My number 2 bank to go to, actually, and number 3, both of them, should I choose to, are both Panamanian banks, and they're very well managed and they're in very good shape. So in that perspective, we're not concerned. As far as the country is concerned, don't worry too much about that. Remember, we're not required to use the U.S. dollar at all. The Panamanian Constitution only forbids the government from printing its own paper currency. Now, it can mint coins or have them purchase them minted because they're very minor, tiny part of the total. And having American coins shipped all the way down here was getting rather expensive. They're heavy and the security costs and blah, blah, blah. So as you can imagine, a penny cost a heck of a lot more to get down here than it was worth. But they're still accepted. American coins are fine. But Panamanian Balboa are found only in coins. So if you walk in a bank with a $10 American bill and you ask the nice lady, the cashier, for a 10 Balboa bill, if her English is pretty good, she'll try to explain. You may end up with the manager. There is no 10 Balboa bill. There's not a 1 Balboa bill, okay? It's not the paper currency. So when you see the price given in Balboas, it's a B with a slash beside it. It's the same as dollars, so don't worry about it. You're not changing anything. So the real question here is if those who are concerned about a dramatic drop in the value of the dollar is not what is going to happen to us. Don't worry about us. If we had to, overnight, we could change the currency and you'd have to pay Swiss francs to go through the canal. And you'd have to do the same thing, or whatever, Singapore dollars to purchase things through the world's second largest free trade zone, and then you'd pay for your copper from our big copper mine, with some other, whatever currency it was. So that can be done. That's not a problem. We're not hamstrung in any way in that regard. We're not about to do that overnight, rest assured. It's not how things operate, nor should we, because it won't work that way. It will take some time. The key point for you is to be, and I would suggest this is what you should do, is focus your attention on what you're going to replace it with. Because if you don't have dollars, you don't care what happens to the dollar. And if you don't have dollars and you're in a dollar economy where the value of the dollar collapses and you have something else which is valuable, you're going to do extremely well here. A lot better than if you're in another economy and hold the dollars. I mean, most of the people who write and ask about it have their money in dollars. And I think the simplest thing is just to say it again and again. The two things you have to worry about is, one, what alternative or alternatives you are going to use, and secondly, when you're going to do it. And that's the hard part. You let us worry about Panama here. We'll take care of ourselves. But you need to worry about yourself. So if you can do that, you get that settled, and it works for you, wow. I mean, that's fantastic. I don't begrudge you a penny of that. That would be wonderful, and best of luck. But as I say, don't worry too much about Panama. Okay, that is basically what I wanted to talk about now. I will get that. I've gotten stats, and I've been struggling to know how much I want to put into this report. So instead of making a full report, which is much longer, even though my update, it's an update, and the updates are going to look long to new readers, but in fact, they're actually focused more tightly. And this one is, I think I've decided, I hope this weekend, a couple more statistics and so on. I need to get the graphs done and the charts done and put together and the PDF made and everything else, and I can get things out of the way so I can worry about all the other things I have in life ahead of me, and you can too. So I'm looking forward to talking to you again. Looking forward to get that update out so I don't have to apologize all the time. Thanks for stopping by.